Maria Rodriguez had worked for Dean Martin for 12 years before she heard him talking to someone who wasn't there. It was April 1987. 1 month after Dean Paul Martin's plane had gone down, Maria had been hired back in 1975 as Dean's housekeeper, living in the staff quarters of his Beverly Hills estate. She'd seen him through divorces, career ups and downs, family gatherings, quiet, lonely nights, but she'd never seen him like this. The first time she heard the voice, she thought he was on the telephone. It was late, around 11 at night. Maria was in the kitchen finishing her evening tasks when she heard Dean's voice coming from his bedroom upstairs. She couldn't make out the words, just the rhythm of conversation. Question, pause, response to something, pause, question again. She assumed he was talking to one of his children, or maybe Frank. Dean often took late-night calls from Frank Sinatra, the two of them talking for hours about nothing and everything. But as Maria passed his bedroom door on her way to her quarters, she noticed something odd. There was no dial tone hum, no click of a phone being hung up when the conversation ended. Just Dean's voice, steady and calm, talking to someone. The next night, same thing. 11 o'clock, Dean's voice from the bedroom. Conversational tone, pauses like he was listening to responses. Maria didn't think much of it. Rich people had their quirks. Maybe Dean had some kind of speakerphone she couldn't hear. Maybe he talked to himself, not her business. But it happened every single night. For weeks, then months, then years. Always around 11 p.m. Always the same pattern. Dean would go to his room, and within minutes Maria would hear him talking. Sometimes the conversations were brief, 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes they lasted an hour or more. And the strange thing was the tone. Dean's voice during these nighttime conversations was different from his daytime voice, softer, more vulnerable. Sometimes he laughed, sometimes she could tell he was crying. But always, he sounded like he was talking to someone real. Maria tried to convince herself it was phone calls, but she was in that house every night. She knew the sounds, the electronic hum of the phone line, the beep when someone hung up, the click of the receiver. None of those sounds ever came from Dean's room during these conversations. One night in 1989, 2 years into this pattern, Maria was walking past Dean's door when she heard something that made her stop. Dean's voice, clear through the door. "I know, son. I know you didn't want me to follow you that day, but I wanted to. I still do." Maria's hand froze on the hallway railing. "Son." He'd said, "Son. Tell me again what it's like up there. The details. I want to know everything." Pause. "And Frank? You've seen Frank yet?" "No, he's still stubborn down here. Won't let go." Pause. Then Dean laughed. A real laugh. "Yeah, he was always like that. Remember that time in Vegas when he..." Maria backed away from the door, her heart pounding. Dean wasn't on the phone. He was talking to Dino, his dead son, having full conversations with him like Dino was right there in the room. She went to bed that night, unable to sleep, listening to Dean's muffled voice through the walls, wondering if she should tell someone, but tell them what? That her employer talked to his dead son every night, that he'd been doing it for 2 years, and more importantly, should she interfere? Dean wasn't hurting anyone. These conversations seemed to bring him comfort. Who was she to judge how a father processed the loss of his child? So Maria said nothing, just listened, night after night, year after year. The conversations followed a pattern. Dean would always start the same way. "How was your day up there?" Like he was calling Dino after work, checking in. Then he'd talk about his own day, what he ate, who called, how he was feeling. Small talk between father and son. Then Dean would ask questions about heaven, about who Dino had seen, about whether it was peaceful, whether Dino was happy, whether he missed being alive. And Dean would pause after each question, like he was genuinely hearing responses. Sometimes he'd nod, sometimes he'd say, "I know," or "You're right," or "I hadn't thought of that." Sometimes Dean would get emotional. Maria would hear his voice crack, hear him crying. "I miss you so much, every single day. It doesn't get easier. Everyone says it gets easier, but it doesn't. It just gets different." Pause. I know I have to keep going, for the others, for your sisters, but it's hard, Dino. It's so hard." Other times the conversations were lighter. Dean would reminisce, tell stories about when Dino was young, laugh about memories. Remember that time you tried to teach me to fly? God, I was terrified. But you were so patient, so calm. You got that from your mother. Pause. Yeah, she was something special. Still is. You watch over her too, right? Maria began to recognize the emotional calendar. The conversations were longer and sadder on certain dates. Dino's birthday, the anniversary of the crash, Father's Day, Christmas. On those nights, Dean's voice would be raw, broken. The conversations would stretch past midnight, Dean talking through his grief, asking Dino questions that had no answers. Why did it have to be you? Why not me? I'm old. I've lived my life. You had so much ahead of you. Pause. I know there's no answer. I know, but I still ask. In 1991, 4 years into this nightly ritual, Maria finally mentioned it to Dean's daughter Diana during one of her visits. Miss Diana, can I ask you something? Of course, Maria. Your father, does he talk to Dino? I mean, does he talk to Dino? Dina's face went carefully neutral. You've heard him. Every night, for 4 years now. Diana sighed, sat down at the kitchen table. We know. We've tried to get him to see someone. A therapist. A grief counselor. He won't go. Is it normal to talk to someone who's not there? Normal? I don't know, but it's what Dad needs. Those conversations are the only time I see him peaceful anymore, so we let him have them. But does he think Dino is really there? Does he think Dino talks back? Dana looked at Maria with tired eyes. I think Dad hears what he needs to hear. Whether it's real or not doesn't matter. It keeps him alive. That conversation stayed with Maria. It keeps him alive. Like without these nightly talks with his dead son, Dean Martin would simply stop existing. The years passed. 1992, 1994. Every single night, Dean talked to Dino. Maria got used to it, the way you get used to any routine. It became part of the house's rhythm. Dinner at 7. Dean to his room by 10:30. Conversations with Dino starting at 11. But in 1995, something changed. Dean's health was failing. He was 78 years old, and the years of smoking had destroyed his lungs. He moved slower, ate less, spent more time in his room, and the conversations with Dino got longer, more intense. Maria would hear Dean's voice for 2, sometimes 3 hours a night, and the content shifted. Less small talk, more preparation. Tell me again. What should I expect when it's my time? Pause. And it won't hurt? You promise? Pause. I'm not afraid of dying, son. I'm afraid of the in-between, the waiting. I'm ready. I've been ready since the day you left. One night in December 1995, 3 weeks before Dean died, Maria couldn't help herself anymore. She had to know. 8 years of listening to these one-sided conversations. 8 years of wondering if Dean was hallucinating, or talking to a ghost, or simply coping with grief in the only way he knew how. She knocked on his bedroom door around 11:15. The conversation had been going on for about 20 minutes. Dean's voice called out, "Come in, Maria." She opened the door. Dean was sitting in his favorite chair by the window, facing the empty chair across from him. The room was dim, just one lamp on, peaceful. "Mr. Martin, I'm sorry to interrupt." "You're not interrupting. What do you need?" Maria hesitated. Then, "Sir, who are you talking to?" Dean looked at her for a long moment. His face was calm. No embarrassment, no defensiveness, just calm. "You've been listening. I'm sorry. I don't mean to spy, but every night for 8 years I hear you talking, and I need to know, who are you talking to?" Dean looked at the empty chair across from him, then back at Maria. "I'm talking to Dino, my son. I talk to him every night. But Mr. Martin, Dino is dead." "Yes, I know. I was there when they told me. I've been there every day since." Maria didn't know what to say. Dean continued, his voice gentle. "You think I'm crazy?" "No, sir, I don't think. It's okay if you do. Maybe I am crazy. But this is how I survived. These conversations, talking to my son, hearing his voice. Whether it's real or not, I don't care. It's what kept me alive for 8 years. Do you really hear him?" Does he talk back? Dean smiled, sad but genuine. Sometimes I think I do. Sometimes I know it's just my own voice in my head telling me what I need to hear, but it doesn't matter, because for an hour every night, my son is alive, he's here with me, and that's enough. Maria felt tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. You've listened to me every night for 8 years. You earned the right to ask. There was a long silence. Then Dean spoke again. Maria, let me ask you something. If you lost someone you loved more than life itself, and talking to them was the only thing that made the pain bearable, would you stop? Even if people thought you were crazy? Even if you knew they weren't really there? Maria thought about it. No, I wouldn't stop. Then you understand. Maria nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Mr. Martin, what does he say? When you talk to him? Dean looked at the empty chair. He tells me about heaven. He tells me everyone's waiting for me. He tells me it's beautiful and peaceful, and there's no pain. And he tells me to hold on a little longer, that it won't be long now, that we'll be together soon. And do you believe him? I want to. God, I want to. Maria left the room, went to her quarters, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Dean's voice resume the conversation with his dead son. The next morning, Maria gave her notice. 2 weeks. She told Dean it was family obligations back in Mexico. She needed to go help her sister. Dean knew it was a lie, but he didn't push. The conversation scared you, he said simply. Not scared, just sad. It makes me so sad, Mr. Martin, to hear you waiting to die, to hear you so ready to go. I'm 78 years old, Maria. I've lived a good life, a full life, but I've been ready to go since 1987. Every day since then has just been waiting. That's why I need to leave, because I can't listen to you wait anymore. I'm sorry. Then put his hand on her shoulder. Don't apologize. 8 years is a long time to witness someone's grief. Thank you for not judging me. Thank you for just letting me have my conversations. Maria worked her 2 weeks. During that time, the conversations continued. Every night at 11, Dean talking to Dino. On her last night, Maria heard something different. Dean's voice, clearer than usual. Okay, I'm ready now. I'll see you tomorrow. Pause. I love you too, son. So much. I'll see you soon. That was December 24th, 1995. On December 25th, Christmas Day, Dean Martin died in his sleep. Maria heard about it from Donna, who called to tell her. He went peacefully, just didn't wake up this morning. Maria told Diana about what she'd heard the night before. Diane saying, I'll see you tomorrow. Dino was quiet for a long time. Then do you think Dinar really came for him? Do you think Dad heard him say it was time? I don't know, Mr. Miner, but your father believed he did. And maybe that's what matters. Years later, Maria told this story to a reporter writing a book about Dean Martin. The reporter asked if she thought Dean was hallucinating, if grief had driven him to some kind of psychosis. Maria thought about it carefully before answering. I think Dean Martin found a way to survive losing his son, and whether Dino's voice was real or imagined doesn't matter, because those conversations kept Dean alive. For 8 years, they gave him comfort, they gave him hope, they gave him a reason to wake up every morning. So you don't think he was crazy? I think grief makes us all a little crazy, and I think we survive however we can. For Dean, that meant talking to his son every night. Who am I to say that's wrong? The reporter pressed. But the night before he died, you said he told Dino, I'll see you tomorrow. And then he died the next day. How do you explain that? Maria smiled. I don't explain it, I just know what I heard. And I know that Dean Martin spent 8 years waiting to be with his son again. And on Christmas Day 1995, he got his wish. After the interview, Maria was contacted by several grief counselors who wanted to study Dean's case. They said prolonged conversations with deceased loved ones could indicate complicated grief disorder, that Dean should have been medicated, that someone should have intervened. Maria refused to cooperate with any of them. Dean Martin wasn't a case study, she told one persistent psychologist. He was a father who lost his child, and he found a way to keep that child close. That's not a disorder, that's love. The psychologist argued that enabling delusions wasn't healthy, that Dean's family should have forced him into therapy. Maria's response was simple. He lived 8 more years. 8 years he might not have had if you'd taken away those conversations. So tell me again how intervention would have helped. The conversations between Dean Martin and his dead son became a quiet legend among people who'd worked in the house. The night staff who'd heard him, the family members who knew, none of them ever spoke about it publicly while Dean was alive. But after he died, the story spread. Some people found it heartbreaking, some found it disturbing, some found it beautiful. Maria found it all three. Every night for 8 years, she would say when asked about it, every single night. He never missed. Even when he was sick, even when he could barely get out of bed, he would still talk to Dino at 11 o'clock. And what did you think about it? Really? I thought it was the saddest thing I'd ever witnessed, and the most loving. Dean Martin loved his son so much that he kept him alive the only way he could. Through conversation, through imagination, through desperate, beautiful, heartbreaking hope. There's a recording that exists. Maria doesn't know who made it, but someone did. A snippet of one of Dean's conversations with Dino, captured somehow. Dean's voice, soft and tired. I miss you, son, every day, but these talks help. They help me feel close to you. So thank you for coming. Thank you for talking to your old man. Pause. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. Sleep well. I'll see you tomorrow night. The recording ends. That pause, where Dino's response would be, is the most profound silence ever captured. Because in that silence is a father's love, a father's grief, and a father's refusal to let go. Maria kept working in private homes after leaving Dean's employment. She heard a lot of secrets, saw a lot of private pain, but nothing ever affected her the way those 8 years of listening to Dean Martin talk to his dead son affected her. It changed how I think about grief, she said. I used to think there was a right way and a wrong way to mourn, but Dean taught me there's just survival. However you survive, that's the right way, even if it means talking to someone who isn't there. Especially then, because the love is still there, the connection is still there. Just because someone dies doesn't mean the relationship ends. Dean understood that, and he refused to let death silence his love for his son. On the anniversary of Dean's death every year, Maria lights a candle, not for Dean Martin the entertainer, for Dean Martin the father, who loved his son so much he spent 8 years talking to him every night. Do you think they're together now? People ask her. Maria always gives the same answer. Dean believed they would be. He believed Dino was waiting for him. And on Christmas Day 1995, Dean went to find out if he was right. That's all I know. That's all any of us know. But privately, Maria believes something else. She believes that on Dean's first night in whatever comes after, at 11 o'clock, he had a conversation with Dino, a real one this time, with both voices audible, with both of them together. And she believes that somewhere, in whatever dimension the dead inhabit, Dean Martin finally got the response he'd been waiting 8 years to hear. Welcome home, Dad. I've been waiting for you.